All right. So right now we're gonna do our rankings, then we're gonna clip them out and have it a separate video. But let's get back and forth. Right, we're gonna go back and forth. Do you have your rankings, Alex?
Yes, I do.
All right. So your number 4.
Um, Actually, how about you? I want to hear what your number four is.
My number 4.
Yes.
My number 4 is John Wick 2.
Okay.
John Wick 2 is my number 4.
Why is it your number four?
Uh, full disclosure, I love all these films. I love number 2, 3, 4 all the same. I love number 1 a little bit more because it's the first one, and you'll find out where it places real quick. But number 2, I loved it. It started the it started the you know what? Scratch that. Number 3 is my number 4.
Okay.
Number 3 is my number 4 because it's the great opening scene, the great scene. I loved it. Then he just kind of like mowed around and and then he has to go to Morocco. That great scene with Halle Berry. But I like number 2 just a little bit better because I like the villain more in number 2, Santino. Like no offense to the adjudicator, I like the adjudicator. She's a good villain, but and then there's it was a lot of great action, right? But I love a great action piece, but it didn't feel it didn't something just didn't. I just like it the fourth best. I don't know why.
So
I
you
like
said so you said the third one is your
number 3 is number 4. Yes, John Wick 3 Parabellum is number 4.
I'm well also on top of that, I will also agree that my number four is also the third John Wick.
Yes.
Um so and yeah, also full disclosure too for myself. I enjoy all these films. I think
Yeah.
they're a lot of fun, some of the best action movies that we've seen in a very long time. Um I think the first 20 minutes of this film is incredible, the third one specifically.
Mm-hmm.
Um and it does not slow down and has a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
Um it's really and the first time I saw it, I didn't really enjoy it as much, and I just didn't really know why. I guess I thought it was a little bloated with the action, but I think I kind of realized is that it doesn't slow down with trying to open the world, and it opens the world pretty well, but it kind of focuses on a lot more stuff rather than John.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that makes sense because it seems like there's a lot. I don't know. There's a lot more interesting stuff going on other than just John too. I
Mm-hmm.
will admit that for the rest of these films as well. But there was something that it just felt like that was missing with this third one. I love
Mm-hmm.
the bank scene, the Continental. I love them holding it down, um, the horse stuff, stuff in Morocco. That was awesome. Um, and again, I think all these films are above average, and not that's not my final rating, but they're they're good to great films, in my opinion, the flaws aside.
Yep.
So, with that said, what is your number three?
My number 3, John Wick 4.
Oh wow,
John Wick 4.
okay,
Yeah. I know I'm giving Justin a lot of flack in the chat about like believability and all that. But yeah, there were just some parts where I'm like, okay. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. It's an action film through and through. But there were just some stuff where I'm like, hmm, okay. It's just a feeling, Alex. You know what I mean? Like I don't know why. I think it's 3. It's just a feeling. I just have a feeling. I don't know why. I just have a feeling. When I watch John Wick 1, it gives me like a specific feeling and I love it. Same thing with John Wick 2. It just I don't know why. It's just like a specific feeling. And number 4 didn't give me that specific feeling. It gave me another feeling. Like my heart was pumping. I was like, yeah, let's do this. But it didn't give me the feeling of number 1 or number 2. You know what I mean?
yeah. Sometimes
Yeah. So
sequels
like,
can be like that.
yeah, yeah. So John Wick 4 is my number 3.
Okay.
Yes.
Uh it's hard. I mean, honestly, it is hard for a lot of people. Yeah, to me, my number 3 is John Wick 2. Um, I really enjoyed this film. I think all these films kind of suffer just a tiny bit for me, just because I think they're very thin on story. But that's just the way it is because they're action films. The
Yeah.
action is the centerpiece of this,
Mm-hmm.
not the acting, not the story. It's the action. But granted, what makes these films different is having that story, the world building, the mysticism, like I mentioned. Um, but this film, it for me, why it's number 3 is that it does carry that it carries that awesome feeling after seeing the first one, and it's just a cool movie, dude. I don't know what else to say, man. It's just cool.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
Um, and I love the catacomb scene. That's one of my favorite John Wick action set pieces throughout all these films. Um, so yeah, that's my number 3. What's your number 2, dude?
My number 2 is John Wick 2.
Okay.
Yeah, it's John Wick 2. It expands the world. It Shut up, Justin. I did have my rankings set up. I quickly changed them because I tend to change my mind a lot because I love all 4 of these films. You are an idiot. Get out of here. Um, Shut up. All
I
right.
love you, Justin.
No, I don't. You can keep
Oh,
that to yourself. It's John Wick 2. The world building was expanded upon. It showed us another world. It showed us another aspect of John Wick. We go to him. I love a good villain. I
yeah.
love a good villain, man. And Santino D'Antonio is a good villain. You know, because like John Wick 3 and 4, there's a villain, but there's also not a lot of villains. You know what I mean? You know, he's kind of like fighting people, and they're like, it's a code, so we have to kill you. Sorry. You know what I mean? I think the best villain is the Marquis de Gramont. You know what
Okay.
I mean? I think he's the best villain, but that's why. But yeah, but Santino was a great villain as well, and it expanded the world. John ended up doing something he shouldn't have done, and it just like put this feeling of it, and I just it's this feeling I had, man. It was dope. It was dope, you know.
It opened up
Yeah,
the world of the mystical
yeah,
world of the John Wick universe,
yeah,
and seeing that for the first time, and you could probably attest to this. I just thought was just really eye opening and just really fascinating.
yeah.
Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, it was quite like so. Like the scene with
Huge
his
highlight.
sister, scene was his sister where she cuts her wrists and then the blood just like gushes over her body. She's like, if I'm gonna die, I'm gonna die my way. And then people started, the scenes where people kept talking like, you back? Kind of. You working?
Yeah.
Yeah. You know what I mean? And like and kind of that, and then him and Common fighting. Uh and then that when Santino calls him Jonathan, oh my God. You knew he was getting shot right there. Because like I pointed out, Alex, who calls him Jonathan? The only person who calls him Jonathan is Ian
Winston.
McShane's character, Winston. No one calls him Jonathan. Everyone calls him John or Mr. Wick, John or Mr. Wick. But only Winston calls him Jonathan, except one man, and that man ended up getting shot in the head. Santino called him Jonathan, then he got shot right away because you do not call him Jonathan.
Didn't Marky de Gramont call him Jonathan too?
No, I think he called him John.
I think Kane did. There was a couple characters in the third, fourth one that I think called him Jonathan too.
I
But
don't. It's been a minute. I have to rewatch it. So you're
but
probably right. So
but
I don't
yeah,
know.
that scene what you're talking about, like how intense that was,
Mhm.
and it was.
Winston's like, "Don't do it, don't do it, John," and then he shoots him. Get out of here, man.
You got to see the full potential of what John could do in the
Yeah,
second one. And that
yeah,
what that made it surely a big highlight for me. It's
exactly.
it's a hard Sophie's choice between picking and ranking these films. So my number 2, um, for me, I would have to say the first John Wick.
That's
Um,
number 2, really?
yeah, man. So
Okay.
I'm it's again, it's a hard Sophie's choice, and I have to see these movies again I've seen some more than others, and of course, this new one just came out, so you know, it's no surprise. I put it as number one, but we'll get that into just a little bit. But my reasoning for number two, being the first film, is that it's just opening to this new world, this new franchise, if you will, and we just all got sucked in, and it has the most emotional and personal story I think out of the other John Wick films. I think
Yeah,
the fourth one is very close, and
yeah,
that's kind of why I gave that more of I elevated that a little bit more, just because of that with character. Um, but yeah, man, I thoroughly enjoy this movie. I kind of got. I think
you're an idiot.
yeah, I'm an idiot.
That's 7 times, Justin.
Oh, Justin's
Not
an
you.
idiot. Oh, I don't know. I kind of was a little underwhelmed with the ending of the first film for me. Um, but I love this film overall. I think it's super strong. If it's on TV, I'll watch it. There's no doubt about it. I mean, most of these films, if it's on TV, I'll watch it.
Mm.
Um, so I alluded to what my number one was, which is obviously the fourth one, and I can tell exactly what your number one is. So let
It's
it
John
rip.
Wick one.
First, let it rip.
It's John Wick one. Uh, I love it to this day. It has a very straightforward story. A man just minding his business gets hogwashed by some rando punks. So the car's not for sale. Leave me alone. And then the kids just wouldn't leave him alone. Just wouldn't leave him alone. And it's a great example of like, watch who you mess with. Because you have no idea who you just screwed over or messed with.
It's a good
'Cause
cautionary tale.
it's a cautionary tale of like, don't be an a-hole.
The worst cautionary tale of all time.
Yeah. Like, be nice to people. Compliment his car. Say, hey, man, that's great. If you want to buy it, be like, how much is it? He's like, I'm sorry, man, it's not for sale. It's not for sale. You keep moving on, but you don't keep pushing it, man. You just don't keep pushing it. And then just the way Michael Nyquist just completely goes white when he finds out whose car his son stole. Where, like you go to Aurelio, and I'm like, oh man, Aurelio, like, you work for my dad. It's like, no, I don't. And they get out of here, and he punches him, and then like he goes, and then Michael Nyquist is calling Aurelio, and he's like, I'm about to kill this dude. And Aurelio saves himself by saying one phrase. It's like, you punched my son. Why? And then Aurelio says, it's because he stole John Wick's car.
Yeah.
Vito, or not Vito. What is his name?
Vigo.
Vigo. It's like and then Vigo's like, completely forgives Aurelio. Just completely forgives him.
He's like,
Like,
what?
You completely forgives him. Like, okay. And he hangs up. And Vigo's like, oh my God, what is going on? And then the scene where he's telling his son and the Allstate guy, Mayhem, he's telling him like who John Wick is. And he's telling him who John Wick is. And then John is smashing the cement. And he's just smashing it.
And her cuts back and forth.
It's and he keeps coming back and forth. And then he's like who is he? He's not the boogeyman. He's like, no, he's not the boogeyman.
He's the guy to send after the boogeyman.
He's the guy you send to kill the boogeyman. And then it's just like, he then like grabs Alfie Allen, kisses him, and says, basically said it was a good time being your father because you're dead.
Yeah.
You're dead. Because he knew John was going to kill him one way or another. It is John Wick 1. And then finding out that dog part ruined me, where they kill the dog and the dog's off to the side. And then when they cut back to the dog and there's this trail of blood.
You cut back to John.
Yeah, cut back to Don. And then the dog is like laying there with John. Then there's a trail of blood. Which means that
camera pans up.
Yeah, the camera pans up and it's a trail of blood. The dog crawled to John.
Yeah.
Crawled to him.
Such a
wicked
detail.
Yeah, like a wicked detail. So John Wick 1.
And I have no gripes, and I have no gripes with how people rank these certain films, because I think all of them are great in their own regard and really good. And I think the first one, I mean, the only reason why I didn't put the first one as my number one is because it's a similar action kind of film where it's a revenge kind of thing that we've seen multiple times. But the reason why it's number 2 is because it opened this world. It opened up this world that's became so fascinating as they kept pushing the needle forward with the rest of these films. And so now my number 1, like I mentioned earlier, is this new John Wick 4. Now, granted, I've only seen this one once. I need to see it again. I know there's a lot of flaws and problems with this film. I think as the this movie gets bigger and bigger, sometimes it loses sensibilities about story and plot holes and whatnot. But the point of a movie is to be entertained and have fun, especially an action film. And they did that in spades. And they did things in here that was just mind blowing to me with Donnie Yen and Mr. Nobody and the overhead sheet scene and the stair scene. But not just that too. Really, if you do well with story and characters, particularly characters, all these characters had their own arc, and the other films, they do have arcs as well. I wish there was more Bowery King. I wish there was maybe a little bit more Winston, of course. And rest in peace, Lance Reddick, for putting such great work into these films. And we'll see him also, I think, in Ballerina too. But I just had so much fun with this new one. This new one is up there. It's one of the greatest action films, along with like the Raid 2 and Raid Redemption. But yeah, man, that's my ranking. It's from least to greatest, and in that kind of way. It's John Wick 3, John Wick 2, John Wick 1, and John Wick 4.
Yep,
And
mine goes from 1 to 4, 1, 2, 4, 3.
yeah,
Yep.
and I gave all these movies like around like 7.5
Yeah.
to 8, and just fathomably enjoyed it. And